20 to 30 lines of code,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't have to write that for every button, right?
Right.
If
So
I have
it's
multiple
almost like
buttons,
having a header and a footer for a website and a navigation that just stays the whole time. You want to be able to call it every
exactly.
time, right? No, I totally get that. So my question is,
Mhm.
when do you use a let and when do you use a const? When you need it to change, you use a let, and when you need it to be constant, you use a const, right?
Exactly. Uh, Let and const both are used to create variables,
Okay.
but let in this case will be a variable whose value might be dynamic, such as if I am creating a counter and every time the value of the counter changes every time I click the button, right?
Yeah.
This means that the value of the variable called let is going to,
Was
let's say
gonna
I'm going to
change
let
every time. Right.
counter is equal to 1. Yeah. But const, if I do const counter 1, I
Can
cannot be
change.
like,
Right.
yeah, I cannot be like counter is equal to 2. This is going to throw an error.
Right.
It's going
Right.
to be like, you cannot change a value. Now, why is there limitation on let and on count like const? Like why we would have to use const in the first place, right? Why do we have to add a limitation? Well, there are two reasons for this. The first thing is that some of the values don't actually change,
Mm-hmm.
such as a username would never change on a website because it's a unique identifier.
Right.
Or maybe if you want to represent the color orange, the hexadecimal for the color orange would never change,
Right.
right? It's just a predefined value.
Or
If
if
I
you
be
don't
like,
want it to change for security reasons, you want to set something and not have it change, you use const.
yeah, you can do that as well. Now, also like this exact hexadecimal represents color white, right?
Right.
The white, is it ever going to change? No. So why do we have to like use it let, right? We have to just be, we can also be like const. So in future, if a developer goes like, maybe I want to change the value of white to this, which is actually black, not
Mm-hmm.
white.
Right.
The code is going to be like, why are you changing a value of a constant? Like white, the value of white is never going to be from, it's never going to get changed from this to this. So it's going to throw an error like, why do you even have to do this? So like
Yeah.
this, we can save ourselves from making
So
mistakes.
let's
So
so
any
let's
value that you,
when would you put
Mhm.
async before the word function?
Okay, great. Now this concept is a bit complex, but I'm going to make it very simple. The one thing that I told you when we were working with the JavaScript HTML is that whenever you're running a set of code, it executes line by line
Correct.
from top to bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question about async, if I go into the engineering of this, it's a very complex concept, but async simply means is that uh, the code is executing line by line, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are some times when a specific piece of code might take a bit of time to finish, such as
Mm.
when I click a button and try to upload my username,
Right.
client to server
Or
to
or a
database,
file. You want to upload an image.
upload an image, right? Uh, we can never know in advance how long
Right.
uploading this file is going to take us to upload this file from our front end to our database or
Mm-hmm.
from our back end to our database. So, async basically tells is that this specific set of code is not asynchronous, but I want to make it asynchronous. So let's say if I want to fetch some details from an external API,
Yeah.
let's call this response. I can be like fetch an example API could be like HTTPS uh, forward slash local host 3000 or whatever that is, right? So let's call it could be an example API like this,
Mm-hmm.
and this could be localhost. Now, this points to HTC. We are on the internet, we are reaching out to a server, and on the server we are saying that there is a folder called new, and in that folder we
There's
have
a
a file
file
called
called HTML.
index.html.
Yeah.
Now we never know how long it's going to take us to fetch that file from that remote server,
Mm-hmm.
right? What we do is that the thing that we want to do is that we know that when the HTML file loads, it's going to put its response into this, and I want to console.log that response, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now what happens is that fetch is not a synchronous call. It's going to take a lot of time. So JavaScript is not going to wait here, right? It's going to come here. It's going to see, okay, I have to fetch a file from a remote server.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll do that in background. Let's move on with the next step. And in the next step, it's trying to console.log the response. But response is undefined because we haven't actually fetched the
Right.
file yet.
Right.
It's going to take 5 seconds. So I'm going to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to add a sync here in the start of the function.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be here like await. This means that when you get here, on this line of code, I know this is going to take 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 15 seconds, but I want the compiler to await here. You're not going to execute anything that's after this
Mm-hmm. Until
as long
that
as you
gets
don't get the
loaded.
response. Yeah, once the response is loaded and you save into a variable, and then you're going to move here. Because I know before you get the response and move to the next line, it's going to throw an error because response is going to be undefined.
Got it.
It's not still. So I'm going to be like await here.
So whenever you need to use a wait, you got to use async function in order for a wait to work.
Exactly. Await cannot be top level. It always has to be in a body of a function, and the function has to be called async.
Okay. What is
That's
a
just a
what does
syntax
async
limit.
stand for?
Asynchronous.
Okay. It's like Ajax, asynchronous JavaScript and XML.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the concept of like cases. Can you just quickly explain um the runtime and listeners and then try, switch, case, try, break? Can you explain that?
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. You know what? For that, let's create a very simple calculator, and you're going to understand the switch case very easily. So, how do you, let's say I want to create a calculator that asks the user for two operands, right? The operand 1 can be 2 and the operand 2 can be 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to ask the users, do you want to add them? Do you want to negate them? Do you want to divide them? Whatever you want to do. Like that's up to the user.
Okay.
I'm going to be like const operand 1 prompt. So I'm going to prompt the user to, and I'm going to say enter operand 1,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So whatever the user enters is going to be saved in this variable. And for now, just for the
So the prompt
simplicity,
is going to be a little box that pops up like an alert box that tells you put in the amount.
yeah, and whatever the value that you put into this prompt
Why did
is
you put
going
in
to
a
be
plus prompt?
a plus prompt is that any value that is taken from a prompt is actually a string, and I want to convert that into a number. Now
So
these are
what is
data types.
plus? Oh, plus says turn it into a number.
Yeah, plus
Got
like
it.
if whatever the value that we get from prompt would be this string, and it's going to convert this into just a simple number.
Got it.
So in future, we can like add mathematical operations onto this
Got it. Like
because we can.
in my database I have stored dates, but the dates are not numbers. They're numbers, but they're not really numbers, so I can't really sort and filter them.
Exactly, exactly.
Got it.
So let's ask the user for a number. It's going to be like, okay, whenever this page loads, this line of code is going to get executed. It's going to open up a prompt. I'm going to be like 23. And when I do OK, and then it's going to run afterwards. So
Got it.
it's blocking here. And I do OK in the console, I get 23.
But you didn't tell
So
it
I
to
got,
wait, right? You just
yeah,
so how does it
yeah.
know to
So
wait?
this is not a promise. So there are few things for prompt. The compiler is just going to await by default. This is not a promise. So promise is another concept in JavaScript, but just understand that fetching a remote value from a remote server, the browser is not going to await for this. The compiler is just going to move on to the next line. But for prompt, alert, and stuff like that, it's just going to await by default. You can understand it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to switches, right? I got the first operand, and I'm going to be like const operand 2, because I want to know like what is the other prompt operand that you want to work on. So I'm going to be like enter second operand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm going to also be like enter first operand. And again, when the user enters this, I'm going to get, save this, and I'm going to console both of them together. I'm going to be like operand 2, uh, operand 2, and the first operand the user enters is 23, and the second is 34. Both of them are consoled. Now here comes the switch, right? I'm going to ask one more thing from the user, right? Const operator. I'm going to be like prompt, uh, please select an operator. And the operator could be plus, it could be minus, it could be divide, or it could be multiply. And I'm going to use this console.log this operator as well to see what we are getting as a value, right? So if I go like uh, enter first operand 23, you can enter second operand 34. Uh, enter operator, I'm going to be like plus. I'm going to do enter, it's also consoled. So these are three set of values that we got from the user. Now there comes a situation, right? This means that the user wants to plus these two operands because he's giving us a plus. If he would have given us a minus, we would think like user wants to uh, uh, negate these values, right? So we have to conditionally run a set of code. So I can be like switch and operator, right? And this switch is going to, I don't actually remember the switch case syntax. Uh, please write switch case syntax JavaScript. Yeah, this is how you write it. So I'm going to be like operator here, right? And now what happens is that when we do this, it's going to conditionally run a set of code. So if the value of operator is plus, I want to run whatever is in here between this case and this break. If the value of the operator is minus, I want to run whatever is in this case and break. And default basically means that if the value of the operator is not even a plus, not even a minus, what do? You just run this anyways. So that's what it is. So we have four cases here, right? We have uh, we have a plus, we have a minus, we have a divide, and we have a multiply. So I just want to console to the user operator operand 1 plus operand 2 if the value of operator is plus. And this goes same for this. Uh, I'm going to minus the operands and console the value. I'm going to divide the operands and console the value. I'm going to multiply the operands and console the value. And if none of this happens, I'm going to console to the user, please enter a, a valid operator. Does this make sense, Joe?
Yeah.
So based on the value of the operator, we are going to conditionally run a specific set of code. So if the value of the operator is plus, whatever is between this case and this break is going to run. If it's minus, this is going to happen. If this divide, this and this, so we are conditionally running a set of code. And it doesn't have to be one line, like it can be thousands of hundreds of line, but whatever is between this break in case, it's going to run. So if I go here and go to my practice, I can be like 2, and the second operand would be 4. And if I be like, uh, please enter a operator, if I enter plus here, right, it's going to store the value to this operator. And if the value of the operator is equal to plus, this is going to run. If I be like, uh, okay, let's see what happened. Plus, see, it console.log 6. So 2 plus 4 is 6. And how did that happen? Because I was consoling operand 1 and operand 2, and I was adding them. Similarly, if I be like 4, 2, and I wanna negate them, if I do okay, this time this is not going to execute. This time this is going to execute. And the answer would be 2. So switch case is basically about running a specific set of code based on a condition. So we are conditionally running a specific set of code, right? So a real use case, a very good, a simple example of this would be if a user clicks a button that says create an account, I'm going to run a specific set of code that's here. If the user clicks a button that says delete my account, I'm going to run a specific set of code that deletes the user's account, which is going to be between this case and break.
Understood.
And just closing with that, if else is basically switch cases again. So this all of this could have been like uh, if operator is equal to plus run whatever is in this parenthesis. Else if operator, now this is very close to English, is equal to minus run this whatever is in here. And we can again be like else if. It's up to you how long you want to change this, right? Operator is equal to divide whatever is here. You have to run this else if, and yeah, that's how it goes. And switch case and uh, else if are very similar to like this. So if the operator is equal to multiply, run whatever is here, right? So switch and if else are very similar like this. So if you want to see them side by side, this is how it looks. You can either write a switch case to conditionally run a set of code, or you can write an if else to conditionally run a set of code based on a condition.
What would be the difference between the switch case and the if case?
Well, the difference between a switch case and a if case is mostly about your preference.
Hmm. There's no other difference other than the preference of what words to use.
Hmm, I'm not exactly sure if there's a technical difference between them, but as far as I know, I think there's just a preference difference. And similarly, if you want to add a default to here, you can be like else. It's going to run anyways, no matter whatever the condition is. But it's all about, I think, preference.
Hmm.
But let's ask this chat GPT, uh, what's the difference between if else and switch? Is it all about preference? Between, as in
I
you,
love that you're bringing that up.
yeah. So what ChatGPT says is that programming lies in the use cases, readability, and performance.
Oh wow.
While both
Interesting.
are used for conditional execution, they have distinct characteristics they make one or more suitable than other. Used when
Wow.
you have a range of conditions to evaluate. Used when you have need to compare a single variable. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So else is when you compare a single variable and then switch is when you compare multiple variables?
So one use case that could be different between switch and else if is that here we're just comparing operator and this value or operator and this value. But here we can be like run if the operator is equal to plus or run else if the
There's
operator
no else switch.
not equal to minus,
Got it.
right? So this is going to run. So the condition is this condition and this condition can be completely different from each other. And I can be like run this if name is equal to Naveed.
Right.
So if the variable, if
But I
the
don't
value,
understand. So one thing I didn't get the aha moment of the if else is it
Mhm.
says if operator is equal to plus, then what will happen?
if if the value of operator is
Is
equal
equal to
to
plus, then what will happen?
whatever is between this open bracket and this closing bracket is going to execute. So if I write this set of code, this is going to execute. None of this. So when the program executes from top line to bottom line, right? From top to bottom as it does, it's going to come here and it's going to be like, okay, is the operator equal to plus? It's going to see, yeah. It's going to execute this. It's going to ignore all of this. It's just going to move on with the rest of the code. And
What
similarly,
happens
if
if you don't have an else at the end of if? What happens if it's none of them? Will it throw an error?
no, it just continues. If it's none of them, none of the condition is going to execute. It's just going to continue with the code.
Okay, got it.
So that's the just main difference between switch and if else is all about running code conditionally based on specific conditions. I think that like covers 40% of your JavaScript.
Okay.
Well, not exactly, but the JavaScript that you're writing,
Do
like
you ever do
now
while? Do you ever use while?
while, yeah, I do while,
What
but
does
while
while
is
do?
very looping, right? That's called looping. So while is let's say if I be like let's create a variable called let counter is equal to 1.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like while, and again, while is very similar to if. Whatever is between here is going to execute if the condition here is true. So the condition here could be true. I'm going to be like if counter is less than 10, console.log whatever is here. And I'm going to just console.log the value of counter again,
How do you make it loop
right?
over and over and over to check?
It loops itself.
Oh,
So what it does is
it just
that
keeps running over and over
initially,
and over.
yeah,
how do you end the loop?
yeah. If I see, I have not saved the file here. If I save the file here, what is going to happen is that the program is going to come here. It's going to see, okay, is counter less than 10? And the actual value of counter is 1. So yeah, it's less than 10. It's going to execute this. It's going to come again to line number 5 and see, is counter less than 10? Yeah, it's less than 10. So it's going to go into an infinite loop. So to end this, we have to create a condition where this condition would be incorrect. And once this is falsy, it's just going to execute with the rest of the code. So how can I do that? Every time this code is executed, I'm going to be like counter is equal to whatever the value of counter is plus 1. So initially when the counter happens, this runs one time. It's going to log the value of the counter and increment the value of this by 1. It's going to go from 1 from 2. And this is going to happen for from 2 to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and each time up to 9. This condition is going to be true. But once this value is equal to 10, which happens every time this runs, right? We increment this. We're going to reassign a value to counter, which is whatever the value of counter is plus 1. So once it's equal to 10, it's going to be like, is counter actually less than 10? And it's no, it's not actually less than 10. It's actually equal to 10, right? So it's not going to log the value after 9. If I go here and go to practice, And yeah, refresh. Did this actually execute? Um, let's see. Counter is equal to 10. Mm,
Do you ever do an
let's see.
await under the while?
Under the file, no, we don't do await.
What about it? What about an if under the while?
If under the while, so you want to do like
You do
while and then
while,
an
and
if.
then it keeps checking, 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 and then you do an if under the while in the same thing. Does that make sense or not really?
Yeah, yeah. But the if is not going to break us out of the body of
Oh,
the
it's not
while.
going to break the body of the while.
Yeah, because even if this if is false, it's just not going to execute whatever is the body in the if, right?
Okay.
But the counter every time is going to, while is going to re-execute if is going to be false. Next time it re-executes if is going to be false, but it's not going to break us out of the body. To break us out of the while, this
You
needs
just
to
have
be
to be
false.
false. Got it.
Mhm.
So you have to do some
I'm,
type of logic that makes it false in order to break it out.
yeah, yeah. So see, initially the value of counter was 1. What I did was that I know this is going to execute one time
Yeah.
because obviously the counter is 1 and it's less than 10. So
Right.
it's going to log the value 1 and it's going to increment this.
Got it.
So it's going to,
Do you
next time when it
do you
executes,
ever
it's going to be
use
2.
do you ever use something called catch?
Yeah, we use catch.
Joe, we're running on to your next meeting.
Okay. Well, we got to hop,
Try
but
and catch is. Mm-hmm.
we'll review
Do you
this
want to?
next time. I'm going to do a little bit of reading up on this and kind of play with this a little bit more, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to review that extension and really understand the different functions in the extension so I could understand the whiles, the ifs, the switch,
Mm-hmm.
the await, the function, the
Okay.
return, the try.
Now,
These are
so now do
objects.
you want to
All
go
these
back
things are
to?
called objects.
No, these are not called
The if
objects.
is called a what? What's that? A property?
If is called a if. It's a if it's just called if.
But if is purple and a function is blue, and
Mm-hmm.
so like if and return are both purple and continue is purple and await is purple. Why?
That's just syntax highlighting. So you can even write your code in a notepad.
Well, yeah.
Like you can come here
But it
and you can be
highlights it
like,
in purple because it's a certain type of code. Because catch and try
yeah,
and for and
yeah,
if and
yeah.
break are the same type of
Yes.
code, right?
Mhm. The color doesn't actually matter, right? I can write the code
No,
here
no, I
and
understand
say,
that, but I'm just saying like the IDE is making it a certain color because it's the same thing. No,
So the idea is just trying to make
makes sense out of
it
this stuff.
easier for us to understand just by
Yeah,
using colors.
awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for being on here with me. Thank you for your support, and we'll schedule another session together.
Okay, so uh, up we up